on this Friday night, bracing for a tariff war.
But if push comes to shove, we will be strong.
The last-minute preparations to prevent it, and the billions of dollars in potential counter-tariffs from Canada. From Deputy Prime Minister to Prime Minister, why Chrystia Freeland says she's the one to take on Donald Trump. Southern Manitoba's winter whiteout, the mayhem, misery, and warning to drivers. And the eagle that tried to cross the road.
He wasn't a happy camper.
The Canadians who helped this bird soar into the sky again.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We are now just days away from the inauguration of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. And for Canada, what could be the beginning of those alarming 25% tariffs he's threatened. Both federal and provincial leaders have tried appealing to Trump, warning him of the economic damage he could inflict on both sides of the border. But now preparations for retaliation are ramping up, including a new council of high-profile Canadian officials focused on the issue. Touria Izri has new details on the tens of billions of dollars in counter-tariffs Canada is planning against the U.S.
Care deeply about this country.
The Prime Minister is vowing Canada is ready to retaliate.
If push comes to shove, we will be strong.
The U.S.-Canada Council, chosen by Justin Trudeau, is trying to prevent and prepare for one of the biggest economic challenges in Canadian history.
If the incoming American administration moves forward with tariffs, we will not hesitate to act. We will respond, and I will say it again, everything is on the table.
According to a government source familiar with Ottawa's plans, that includes $37 billion in potential counter-tariffs. They're meant to cause the least economic damage to Canadians, since higher levies ultimately mean higher costs. If the U.S. does not back down, Trudeau could start consultations on another $110 billion in tariffs.
I think there's a whole range of tactics that are at our disposal, and not all of them are tariffs.
Former Alberta Premier Rachel Notley is on the council. The current Premier, Danielle Smith, refused to sign a joint statement this week on Canada's response, blaming the federal government's unwillingness to rule out tariffs on energy.
I would urge her to think about getting back to a more disciplined, more Canada first kind of approach.
The last-ditch effort to get the U.S. to reverse course included a visit by Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly to the U.S. Capitol.
When I mentioned the impacts of a Trump tariff tax on Americans, they're not only surprised, they're very worried.
There are no winners. There are only losers. Some may lose more than others, but everybody loses at the end of the day.
A report from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce found 25% tariffs could shrink Canada's GDP by 2.6% and America's by 1.6%, underscoring that this move will hurt Canadians as well as Americans. Carolyn?
Touria Izri in Montreal, thank you. The RCMP's 2 new Black Hawk helicopters are coming into service today, providing additional support to secure the Canada-U.S. border against illegal crossings and drug smuggling. Global News had exclusive access today. These are the first images of the refitted aircraft. The helicopter deal was completed quickly to get the new capabilities online before Trump's inauguration. We'll go behind the scenes as the elite teams train tomorrow on Global National and in a special edition of the West Block on Sunday. Former Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland has officially thrown her hat in the ring to replace Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as the next Liberal leader. Her dramatic resignation as finance minister set the stage for Trudeau to eventually step down. But Freeland faces an uphill battle to distance herself from some of Trudeau's signature policies. Mackenzie Gray joins us now from Ottawa. Mackenzie, was there any doubt Chrystia Freeland would run?
Well, the worst-kept secret in Ottawa is now official, Carolyn. The woman seen as helping take down Justin Trudeau is now vying to replace him.
Chrystia Freeland, keeping it brief. I'm running to fight for Canada.
We have to be candid.
Those 6 words expanded on in the Toronto Star, where the former Deputy Prime Minister laid out her vision to fight the incoming U.S. president. Hope is not a strategy and capitulation is not an option. Now is the time for us to be strong, united, and smart.
When I look at the field of candidates that we have in the Liberal Party, Chrystia Freeland soars to the top of that pile. She has an experience at dealing with Mr. Trump.
And who can best take on Donald Trump is what Freeland wants the Liberal leadership ballot question to be.
This budget is about fairness for every generation.
Hoping to skate past her 9 years working to implement Justin Trudeau's policies.
8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back with the carbon rebate.
Including the consumer carbon tax, which Freeland vigorously defended. But a source close to her says she will remove and replace it if she becomes PM.
The Conservatives and everyone else is already tying her hand in glove to Justin Trudeau. We even saw the Prime Minister's comments about how they did everything together.
One potential challenger to Freeland has bowed out, with Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson saying, stepping aside from my position in cabinet at this critical time would not, in my view, best serve Canadians.
I'm not a usual politician.
Making it a likely Mark Carney versus Chrystia Freeland battle to become the next Prime Minister, which is a fight between friends. Carney is the godfather to one of Freeland's sons, and that personal relationship will have an impact on how the campaign plays out.
We can have these conversations and have these competitions in a really civil way. And it's a good contrast to a lot of the divisive politics that we're seeing.
Trudeau's departure seems to have given the Liberals a bump in the polls, ECOS having them 11 points behind the Conservatives compared to over 20 in early December, Carolyn. But whoever takes over for Trudeau will still have a tough road ahead.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thank you. And we'll dig deeper into Mark Carney's background a little later in the newscast. But first, to the U.S., where one of the world's biggest social media apps is set to go dark for millions within days. Today, the country's Supreme Court unanimously ruled to uphold a law banning TikTok over national security concerns unless its Chinese parent company sells it off. As Jackson Prosko reports, there are questions over how it will be enforced, especially with the incoming Trump presidency.
The decision from the Supreme Court was unanimous. On TikTok, the reaction immediate.
You came out 9-0 unanimous? You all don't agree on anything.
Thanks a lot, old farts. Super cool, government. Get rid of an app, but keep guns to kill kids.
170 million American users now face being shut out of TikTok on Sunday as the platform becomes banned under U.S. law.
The Supreme Court was asked whether or not this law violates the First Amendment rights of TikTok or TikTok's users. And the Supreme Court said resoundingly, no, it doesn't.
In the end, national security concerns trumped free speech, with the U.S. government arguing TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance pose an existential risk through data access and influence.
Why you ban it is controlled by Beijing.
President Joe Biden has said he won't enforce the ban, leaving it up to incoming President Donald Trump to decide what to do. On Truth Social, Trump wrote, "My decision on TikTok will be made in the not-too-distant future, but I must have time to review the situation." Trump has invited TikTok CEO Shou Chew to his inauguration.
I want to thank President Trump for his commitment to work with us to find a solution that keeps TikTok available in the United States.
Under the law, TikTok would have to be sold to an American operator. Trump has reversed his position on a ban and may seek a compromise.
So there may be some forced relationship between TikTok and an existing U.S. company, or there may be some kind of a TikTok subsidiary that operates solely in the United States.
Last year, Canada ordered TikTok to wind down its Canadian business over similar concerns, but stopped short of banning the app. Back in Washington, the most likely outcome is a brief reprieve. Trump could issue a 90-day extension on the ban. Not enough time to assuage fears about Chinese influence, but perhaps enough to find an American buyer. Jackson Prosko, Global News, Washington.
Well, TikTok CEO is one of many tech leaders expected to attend Monday's inauguration. But now only those with tickets for the presidential platform and members of Congress will be able to attend in person. Donald Trump's inauguration is being moved indoors because of Arctic air moving down from Canada. It's expected to cause temperatures to plummet, meaning dangerously cold wind chills in Washington. The winter blast is already causing whiteout conditions in southern Manitoba, where blizzard warnings are in effect and highways are closed. The RCMP says there have been dozens of crashes, including a huge pileup involving an estimated 40 vehicles. Manitoba's transport minister said one multi-vehicle crash was 2 kilometers long. All hospitals in Winnipeg are under a code orange, warned to prepare for an influx of patients because of those crashes and the deteriorating conditions. 2 police officers in Ontario have been criminally charged for their roles in chasing a robbery suspect the wrong way down a highway, which ultimately left 4 people dead. Ontario's Special Investigations Unit says the officers with Durham Regional Police have each been charged with 3 counts of criminal negligence causing death, among other charges. The pursuit on Highway 401 in April 2024 ended with a 6-vehicle crash which killed 2 grandparents, their infant grandson, and the 21-year-old suspect. 3 others were seriously injured. Southern California is finally getting a break from powerful winds that caused the wildfires around LA to explode in size. And there may even be a bit of rain this weekend. Some 11,000 residents have been given the all clear to return home as fire crews increase containment of the Palisades and Eaton wildfires. 82,000 people remain under mandatory evacuation orders. The LA County Sheriff's Department says 18 people are still unaccounted for. 27 people are known to have died. And in Central California, a fire is burning at one of the world's largest battery storage plants. It started yesterday. Workers and more than 1,000 people living nearby were forced out of the area. Firefighters believe the best approach is just to let it burn. Air quality is being monitored and an investigation will begin once the fire is out. Israel's security cabinet has approved a ceasefire deal with Hamas that would pause the 15-month war in Gaza. That could mean the first terms of the agreement will begin as early as Sunday. Vincent McAvenny reports.
Ignore the surrounding rubble, and this could almost pass for a normal Friday morning market in Gaza. Palestinians browse what little remains available. They wait for Israel's final decision on the peace deal. Not all have been so lucky. Israeli airstrikes have killed and injured yet more as they wait for Sunday's ceasefire. We ask God for the truce to be implemented because the people are really tired of a life of death, a life of killing and a life of destruction. Life has become an unbearable hell. We want a truce, we want peace, we want to live like all other countries. We're tired of wars and destruction. One doesn't know what to say. We just want to live in peace. In Jerusalem, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has a political battle. First, he needed the backing of his security cabinet to approve the deal, which would see the first hostages released on Sunday. With their approval, the final hurdle, his own fractious coalition. Some, like Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, have threatened to resign if the deal passes, collapsing the government and triggering elections. But others, having to leave talks to observe the Jewish Sabbath, have signed up. We signed in favor of the release of hostages in this deal.
We hope that in the future we will be able to finish the job in Gaza. This is something that we want to do, but now we want to bring our people back home. And this is why we vote for this deal.
Families of the hostages wait. For some, relief, despite it having gone on too long for their loved ones.
I welcome this deal with a joy in my heart for every hostage saved, for every file saved. I want to thank President Trump, President Biden. This deal comes too late for my son Guy, whose life will not be saved, but it can be brought back home to burial here.
For Palestinians in Gaza, the food and medical aid convoy building up at the border can't come quick enough. Vincent McAvenny, Global News, London.
It's being called a once-in-a-century find. Coming up, the ancient bathhouse just unearthed in Italy. An unexpected light show lit up the sky over the Caribbean last night on account of Elon Musk's SpaceX. The display was caused by a failure in the company's latest Starship rocket test. The uncrewed spacecraft exploded not long after taking off from southern Texas. SpaceX says it's analyzing the data to determine what happened. The test wasn't a total failure, though, after a returning booster from the original launch was caught successfully for just the second time ever. You're looking at Mount Kilauea in Hawaii, where the volcano is spewing lava up to 100 meters into the air. So far, this latest eruption is confined to the summit crater. Kilauea is one of the world's most active volcanoes, and this is its fourth eruption since December 23rd. U.S. President Joe Biden has set a new record for the number of presidential pardons and commutations. Just today, he commuted the sentences of nearly 2,500 nonviolent drug offenders.
These individuals are serving a disproportionately long and harsh sentence compared to the sentence they would receive had they committed the crime today.
Biden commuted an additional 1,500 sentences last month, including the most controversial use of his clemency power when he pardoned his son, Hunter Biden. 3 lawyers who once represented the late Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny have been sentenced to prison. The men were found guilty of involvement in an extremist group and sentenced to between 3 and 5 years behind bars. They were arrested in October 2023 while Navalny was serving time on several convictions, including extremism. Today's decision intensifies Russia's crackdown on dissent and is widely seen as a way to discourage defense lawyers from taking on political cases. Straight ahead, so just who is Mark Carney? We take a closer look at one of the front-runners for the Liberal leadership. In the contest to lead the Liberal Party of Canada and take over as Prime Minister, Mark Carney is the only candidate not in the Liberal caucus. He's never been a politician, though he has significant ties to the Liberal Party. Heather Yorks-West takes a closer look at the economist now vying for the country's top job.
I've worked around the world, but I'm grounded in what I learned right here in Edmonton. To be responsible, to be fair, to stay humble.
Born in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, and raised in Edmonton, Mark Carney, a Harvard and Oxford University educated economist, first rose to prominence in this country as the governor of the Bank of Canada.
His resume, his track record is quite interesting. He was Bank of Canada during the financial crisis. He was appointed by Harper. He had been a career civil servant at that time.
Widely credited for helping to steer Canada through one of the worst economic periods globally since the Great Depression, Carney was later recruited to take on the same position overseas.
He is quite simply the best, most experienced and most qualified person in the world to be the next governor of the Bank of England.
The first non-Brit in the role, Carney would go on to lead the Bank of England for 6 years.
I think he will be seen as having tried to pull it in what was seen as a sort of more modernizing direction, attempting to get the central bank to take climate change seriously, for example.
Welcome to Edmonton.
5 years later, Carney has his sights set on a new job.
I've helped manage multiple crises, and I've helped save 2 economies. I know how business works, and I know how to make it work for you.
Carney has never held an elected position, but last year he was tapped by the Prime Minister to chair a Liberal task force on economic growth. His father has also had ties to the party, running here in Edmonton for the Liberals back in 1980. That Carney came in second. 4.5 decades later, this Carney hopes he can win. Heather Yurex-West, Global News, Edmonton.
Next, the unusual golden eagle that turned up in PEI and its return to the sky. Archaeologists have uncovered one of the largest and most luxurious spas ever in ancient Pompeii. The private bathhouse, built about 2,000 years ago, had room for roughly 30 people. It was equipped with hot, warm, and cold rooms. It was discovered beside a banquet hall, suggesting elite Romans might have treated their guests to a relaxing bath before a large feast. Well, PEI gets its fair share of tourists, but a golden eagle in November, not your typical visitor. The giant bird was spotted flapping down the middle of a road, unable or unwilling to fly. Since then, a wildlife group has been helping it regain its strength. And this week, Goldie, as he's become known, took flight. Heidi Petracek reports.
You might say this impressive bird of prey took a bit of a wrong turn recently.
They're uncommon.
and they're really majestic birds.
The golden eagle was spotted on a November afternoon, not way up in the sky, but flapping on the side of a road on Prince Edward Island.
I called him Goldie when I realized he was a golden eagle.
And this wildlife rescuer knew he must need help.
When I did have to handle him, he wasn't a happy camper, but he's actually much more gentlemanly than most bald eagles I've met.
Back at her sanctuary, Goldie ate voraciously. But even with a full belly, he wouldn't fly, so a road trip was in order to see experts in Nova Scotia.
We do the blood work, we check for lead poisoning, do the physical exam, and really we couldn't find much wrong with him.
It could be Goldie simply got tired. He was supposed to be heading from where golden eagles typically breed in the Pacific Northwest up through Alaska to settle down south in the U.S. or northern Mexico, a trip that can take up to 2 months. But instead, he ended up in the Maritimes. But after several weeks at the Nova Scotia facility, Goldie began to recover until Swinimer decided it was time for a grand send-off. The big day attracted a flock of eager onlookers who waited.
We did have to net him and get a blanket over him and get him out. And he, even once on the railing, he didn't seem too excited about leaving.
And waited until...
You're free, buddy.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get up close and personal with a golden eagle.
It's a beautiful day. It was a postcard. I'm happy.
This rare sighting, now a memory worth framing. Heidi Petrocic, Global News, Seaforth, Nova Scotia.
And that is Global National for this Friday. I'm Carolyn Jarvis. We leave you tonight with a farewell to a quintessentially Canadian chocolate. The cherry blossom in that signature little yellow box is soon to be no more. The chocolate-covered cherry has been around for more than 100 years, but Hershey Canada says production has stopped. It's unclear why, but for anyone feeling nostalgic, you may still be able to find the sweet treat for a little while longer. Thanks for watching. See you here tomorrow.